All right, thanks so much, Stan. And now we're going to continue our conversation and get into education and diversity. We'll start with you, Teran, and we alluded to this earlier, you know, about Jackson County and how they are dealing with the large increase of Hispanic population.
And I couldn't agree more with Ms. Bundle's comments about the importance of education. The statistics right now are pretty abysmal. We are just not doing a good job. The adult population coming into Jackson County, over 60% of them have less than a 6th grade education. And so when the families are struggling in an uneducated family group, then children, it's even more important for the schools to step up and take the lead in promoting education. And we are not doing a very good job at it. Of the students that we have in the 10th grade, less than 40% are passing I-STEP now, and that's just not acceptable. And it's where students, the average in the state of Indiana is 76%, when the average Latino population is 37%. That's not acceptable.
What do we need to be doing better, do you think?
Oh, well, we need teachers to step out of their comfort zone and to reach out and get more training. There are some wonderful programs out there, SIOP programs for sheltered instruction observation protocols that will help not just diverse students, but all students achieve at higher levels. We need professional development. We need support. In Indiana last year, we spent $10 billion on education, $7 million in ELL support. And this year, they haven't given us a budget yet, but they're talking about cutting that to $3 million. $10 billion versus $3 million. Where are our priorities? If these children are going to be half of our population, why aren't they getting a lot more attention from our legislature?
Lillian, I want to go to you right here because you're hearing these numbers and that kind of thing. What do you think we need to be doing better in the school systems with the Hispanic population?
You know, there's a couple of things. One of the things that I get to do with my job is go out and talk to high school kids and middle school children. And there's a couple of things that have happened. I would try to go and talk to them about Indiana University. What I discovered that I couldn't even begin to talk about Indiana University. I had to talk about the college process. And then I realized that I could begin to talk about the college process. I had to talk about staying in high school. Because one of the things that we have families who maybe might not understand the school system. You have sometimes families who need the children to stay at home to help with the kids. We also have folks that, you know, in some cases teachers, which again, there are many wonderful teachers, but teachers who maybe are being introduced for the first time to kids that they don't know what to do. And again, it could be through language barriers, cultural barriers. One of the things that I discovered was when I was going out to talk to kids, some of the school counselors would already make decisions which kids would go to college and which would not. And it was not necessarily meanness. I don't want to say it was racism or anything like that. Maybe in some cases it was. But a lot of it's because their own assumptions of what the students were capable of doing. Just because they could not speak the language, there was an assumption they didn't have the intelligence or they have the ability or, oh my gosh, they have so much to catch up. We really need to focus on this and not really think about long-term situations. And then, go ahead. No. And then the other thing is, you know, with the parents themselves, I think there is in culture, I mean, I come from an immigrant family, and my parents, you know, whatever the teacher said, they said. And to some degree, there's sometimes a belief that parents don't care or they're not interactive. Part of it might be because they are working a lot. Part of it has to do because there is language barriers. But a lot of it is because we see the teachers as the, you know, they're the authority. Whatever they say goes. So I think a lot of it, there's a lot of misconception on all the different parties. And I think it's getting that communication and the dialogue among everybody.
I hate to interrupt this, but let's go over to Stan once again in the radio booth so that we can get that interview in as well. Stan?
Thanks, Ann. I'm here with Laura Plummer, who's the chairwoman of the board of Bloomington's Lotus Foundation. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to talk to you, first of all, about what Lotus is and what it does, and just give us a brief overview, if you would, of what your organization's all about.
Well, the Lotus Education and Arts Foundation, which runs the Lotus Festival, does things besides the Lotus Festival, even though I think that's what most people are familiar with. We also have our Blossoms program, our Lotus Blossoms program, which is an outreach program in the public schools in 5 counties. And we also do a lot of programming during the year. So we have an educational component as well as the festival.
And when we're talking about the festival, we're talking about a lot of different arts and music type offerings that bring in people from all around the state and from far and wide. And And these offerings really speak to diversity because I think they come from a number of different cultures that people might not, even in a place like Bloomington, which strives to really be diverse, you might not find that on a normal day-to-day basis even here.
Oh, that's absolutely true. There are not Tuvan throat singers everywhere in Bloomington. And I would say at the festival, which takes place in the fall every year, there's diversity at every corner. We have artists who come in. There are street artists who come along. Last year, students and children made masks. There was a large parade. Lotus is very participatory, and I think that's what makes it unique in some of its outreach in making young students, especially in our Blossoms program, get out of their comfort zone, as Torrance was saying, and participate in the activities of a culture, like making a mandala alongside people from the Tibetan Cultural Center here, or dancing to African drums, or trying their hand at a drum.
Do you see people, even especially, maybe even especially the kids, who you can sort of visibly see their eyes opened from some of these programs to ways of thinking about the people and the culture around them that they might not have considered otherwise?
Absolutely, and they enjoy it, and it becomes part of their own activity, and you can see them realize that there's fun to be had and no fear to be had when they're, when they're dancing or making something, and working not only with artists from other countries, but alongside students from other places that they may not have known. I mean, we have a lot of diversity here in Bloomington, and I think Lotus captures some of that too.
And it's also an economic development driver as well. I mean, diversity, I think, can translate into dollars and cents for a place like Bloomington.
And I think that a good bit of the Bead's hope is to do just that. Last year, our 2008 festival, I believe, using markers from Americans for the Arts, which is a nonprofit that promotes arts, their statistics tell us that in terms of revenue to the state and in the local community or economy, if you want to put it that way, Lotus brought in, $39,000, $40,000, and that's in a weekend. That's not too bad. So more programming like that, I think, brings people to Bloomington. It brings Bloomington to life. And I think the other part of diversity that's useful is that we bring artists, various sorts, musical and visual arts artists from other places to Bloomington, and they get to know what this part of America is like. We're not just our federal government, we are not just the big cities, but we have small towns that are welcoming and diverse as well.
Well, sadly, we're out of time, but Laura, thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Ann, back to you.